Items on from the building department and the bylaw department. Item 16, pages 136 to 141. Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Um, First item is the building department revenues for October. And as you can see on the chart, they were noted this month as being probably not quite a historical low, but certainly low enough to cause us concern of what is going on out on the street. After speaking with a number of contractors in the field and other local governments, there seems to be a lot of hesitation in moving forward with projects for a variety of reasons. And some of those reasons relate back to the 2012 building code requirements for engineering seismic upgrades and seismic design for new buildings. And that's causing a lot of angst with owners because to get what they're looking for is sometimes quite costly from an engineering perspective. So what we're seeing is a redo of plans, and this is taking a lot of time to compromise, I guess, a bit on costs. One of the other factors that enter into this too is the requirement for doubling the limiting distance from a fire separation perspective from lot lines. So this is, although we did a seminar, a public presentation in February of this year to explain that to a lot of people who were here. It was very well attended. Some of the designers still didn't really catch on until the lights went on at plan check time, and they discovered that they couldn't have as many windows as they had hoped on certain side yards and sometimes even the fronts of the buildings, depending on the lot configuration. So a lot of redesign and rethought had to go into the building in order to keep them compliant with the new setbacks set not from a zoning perspective, but from the fire separations between buildings perspective. And they essentially doubled for us in this jurisdiction because of our fire department not being able to respond on an average within 10 minutes of a call for service. So that's created some problems for people getting their designs the way they want them to.
Director Lewis?
When you say fire separations in between buildings, are you referring to on adjacent lots?
Yes, through the chair to answer that, how it is measured, the limiting distances are measured from property lines, not necessarily building to building on adjacent lots. The methodology that's used is you have to keep a certain distance from a property line based on how many windows you have on that property line projection. So a typical rule of thumb might have been under the old building codes, you could go 2 meters from a property line might give you 12% of the wall surface as openings, unprotected openings or windows. These days you have to get the same number of window openings, you have to be double that distance away from the property line. So instead of 2 meters, you're looking at 4 meters. So that's created, especially if you're trying to capture a view through a side yard or a property line that's at an angle to a view corridor, that's created some problems from the designer's perspective in providing open and airy and view picture windows from new construction. So a lot of additional thought and compromise has gone into is having to be designed into the building. And sometimes the applications we get, people aren't aware of that. They're used to dealing with jurisdictions that don't have that restriction, municipalities and cities in the Lower Mainland. So when their plans get turned away because of limiting distance issues, it's a complete rethink of the layout of the house in many cases. So we're having to work with those designers to come up with solutions. And
Well, why do we have those restrictions when other areas do not?
Well, what it comes down to, Madam Chair, is there is a chunk of the building code that speaks to fire department response times. And in a city where fire departments are prevalent and the geography is tight, they can respond to a fire in a relatively short time. And the formula that they've used is you have to be able to respond 95% of the time within 10 minutes of getting a call. So that time is measured from the time you get the call to actual being on site with equipment to fight the fire. And that rarely occurs in rural areas like the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So it may occur, for example, in Gibsons. You may be able to meet that fairly easily, but certainly not in the Regional District. It's rare that you can meet that. And because they can't meet it all the time, the default is to either put sprinklers in the building or set the building further back from property lines. So there are choices. Of course, redesigning the building and the openings are there, but it does present additional costs to the owner.
Director Lewis?
So, Peter, our setback is still 1.5 meters, is that correct? Okay, so then 1.5 meters, like how much window space could you have?
In many cases, you couldn't have any. It's a formula based on height and width of the building, and under these new regulations, certain windows are permitted. For example, a bathroom window of small area, and perhaps a basement window that's where there's a basement below grade, where you have a kind of a clear story window. But windows typically on the first and second floor wouldn't be permitted unless you're further set back.
Okay, what if one of those was the bedroom egress window that you are required to have?
We have run across that situation on a number of occasions, and there are different approaches that you can exercise. It means changing the layout of that particular elevation. If there is no other way to get required egress from a bedroom, then they either have to relocate that bedroom somewhere else within the floor plan, or have that bedroom occur in a corner of a building where you can put the egress window either to the front or back of the building instead of the side.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm really interested in the escalating costs of construction as a result of building code. That's a big concern, and I wonder if that feedback is going to the province to let them know that they are actually creating difficulties of another sort when they're trying to resolve certain difficulties.
Madam Chair, if I may, the Regional Permits and License Group in Vancouver, which we're a member, they are in the process of assessing some of those impacts, because not only is it seismic design, and in our particular case, it's also limiting distance setbacks, but there are other factors, energy code requirements that will be coming shortly. They're supposed to have been issued by the minister this fall, but they're not coming likely now until spring. We've gone on the bandwagon to be a member of the Solar BC people, so that we can take advantage of solar gain on houses, either for hot water heating or for photovoltaics. Building those provisions in are easily done at the construction stage. Very difficult later on to retrofit, but those, although they're small costs, maybe $800 or $1,000, they still represent another chunk that gets added to the overall cost. There'll be new standards coming for energy efficient windows, which I think has just landed. There has been some pushback from the industry to deal with inventory on energy efficient windows. And once that inventory is used up, then buildings will be required to have those new energy standards incorporated into their windows. And that makes for a more expensive window. And if people are looking at more windows in homes, it's another expense that people will have to bear. So hard numbers as far as what impact that has completely on a percent basis, or I guess the jury's still out on that, but I expect we'll see some of those numbers coming in here maybe by mid-year next year, where builders can actually say, yes, it's costing us this much more to build this house.
Guess why people don't take out building permits? It's one of the reasons. Anybody else? Director Moreau?
I'm a little confused. I thought we were on the first
We are
report.
on the revenue report.
Okay, good. Okay. It just seemed to go to the building code one, that's all.
Well, I think it's because Peter was discussing the reason why building is down.
Okay.
That's where that came from.
Okay.
Are we done with this? Any other questions or comments?